What's going on, Summoners? Welcome back to another Pro Guides video. I'm Kangas, and in this video I'm covering all the upcoming changes for patch 11.9. This last patch has been pretty hectic, and some big changes created a ton of chaos. So with MSI just around the corner, it's no surprise that we're seeing some equally as impactful adjustments being made. So hit that sub button, and let's hop right into it. So first things first, let's cover the new skins. We got a whopping 7, including 1 Prestige Edition. To commemorate Damwon Gaming's victory at Worlds 2020, we got some new skins for the team. Damwon Gaming Jin, Kennen, Leona, Nidalee, and Twisted Fate will all be available next patch, as well as Conqueror Jax and Conqueror Jax Prestige. Just in time for those buffs. Make sure to check those skins out, especially if you're a fan of the team. So with those out of the way, let's cover balance changes. Starting off with item nerfs. I'm sure a lot of you guys are happy to hear that Turbo Chem Tank is once again getting nerfed. While it did receive a change before, it simply was not enough, and this time it's not just getting an adjustment, it's straight up receiving a nerf. The active movement speed is going down from 60 to 40%. This is a straightforward nerf and just straight up makes the item less effective. The other item receiving a nerf is Dead Man's Plate. Movement speed is the clear target of this next patch, but in Dead Man's Plate's case, the bonus it provides isn't nearly as overwhelming as its mythic friend. So instead, the item is having its bonus health reduced from 400 to 300, meaning that champions that really prioritize speed over tankiness can still build this item when damage reduction isn't their main priority. So those two nerfs out of the way, let's cover item buffs next. The first buff is for the mythic item Moonstone Renewer. That's right, it's only out of meta for about 2 patches before Riot decides to bring it back, and to be fair, it has felt a bit underwhelming, so enchanters get the big buff to help out the entire class. Starlight Grace's healing effect is being increased from 60 to 70. Next up is Death's Dance, which is receiving some small stat buffs. The attack damage is going up from 50 to 55, and the armor from 40 to 45. Although minor, this should help incentivize players to build one when they want an item to provide some extra damage as well as tankiness. And just so it doesn't feel left out, Wit's End is also getting buffed. These are some nice ones though. First, the dagger in the recipe is being changed to a long sword, and for most champions, having access to some extra damage early on will be more meaningful than the attack speed that the dagger provides. You can also make a more meaningful purchase along the way. And overall, the bonus attack damage from the completed item is going up from 30 to 40. Finally, we have a small buff for tank junglers, because Sunfire Aegis will now deal 150% instead of the initial 100% damage to monsters. There's no doubt that a nerf to Chem Tank and a buff to Sunfire Aegis will create some noticeable changes for tanks in the jungle. And before we move on, we got our quick question of the day. Which role do you think is the weakest right now? It's kind of crazy to think about this, but I've heard a lot of people say that they feel mid lane is actually at an all-time low for impact. While I kind of agree with that statement, I don't necessarily believe it's the weakest role, because even in pro play you still see insane carries like Veigar and Azir come out. And I know you're gonna say I'm biased because I'm a support main, but in my opinion, it is still support. At least in solo queue, in the case that you manage to get a power pick like Thresh, you can 1v9 games, but a lot of the other champions, it feels like just the weakest role because of how quickly fights can end. But let me know your answers in the comments down below. And that covers the item changes, so let's talk about champions next, beginning with the top lane. First up, we got Dr. Mundo. After getting pushed into the top lane, he has been dominating low elo a bit too hard. He's straightforward, and players just can't figure out how to fight against him as a result. Both his AD and armor growths are going down from 3.5 per level to a flat 3. Overall, this shouldn't have too big of an impact, as the biggest issue is that players will often just neglect building healing reduction. Rumble got some huge buffs to help him top lane, and while yeah, they helped there, they also helped him out in the mid lane. This was unintended, so his passive damage is going down from 10 to 50 on hit to 5 to 40. This means that the percentage health damage will play a bigger part during overheated scraps. Against squishier mid laners, Rumble just won't deal as much damage. Garen is also due for a nerf after being such a prominent pick across all ranks this season. His W will provide a little less armor and MR per stack, with the value overall going down from 0.25 to 0.2 for each unit killed. However, the stat cap will also be increased from 120 to 150, meaning you still max out at the same amount, but need to kill 30 more units to hit that point. Next, we have a pretty significant change for Shen's ultimate. The shield base health is being reduced from 175 to 525 to the new 120 to 500. But overall, this is a buff, so it'll now also include a ratio for 17.5% of your bonus HP. That's pretty meaningful scaling for sure. Now, if you want to give allies those huge shields you see in those crazy off-meta build videos, you don't have to build AP to do it anymore. Just build a ton of health. You know that stat that tanks will typically want anyway. This is definitely a buff for Shen players, except for the select few who did like him as a glass cannon. And finally, we have some nice buffs for Set. For those of you who like building damage on him, these changes are good news for you. Set's W damage is being changed from 25 plus 10 per 180% of grid expended to 25 plus 20 per 100 AD. Also, his ultimate's bonus AD ratio is going up from 100 to 120%. So yes, long story short, if you build a lot of damage, you're gonna get more damage with set next patch. Moving forward, let's run through the jungle changes. First up, Hecarim is up for a nerf, and I'm certain a lot of you have been wanting to see this change for a while. His base armor is being reduced from 36 to 32, but his armor growth is going up from 4 to 4.25. His Q's bonus damage per stack is being reduced from 5% to 2% plus 1% per 33 bonus AD. Also, W's healing will include a bonus 1% healing for every 40 bonus AD for damage that he deals. However, damage his allies deal will only heal him for 15% plus 1% per 80 bonus AD. Finally, his E's minimum bonus damage is going down from 35 to 155 to 30 to 110, and the maximum bonus damage from 70 to 310 to 60 to 220. These are huge nerfs that should absolutely take Hecarim out of top tier in next patch, and if they don't, I'm gonna slap every jungler that tries to play him. The changes to his W healing are arguably the biggest, as this cuts tank Hecarim's power down significantly. He won't soak up nearly as much damage in the middle of big fights, and instead, players will have to rely on their own damage to make use of the ability. Next up is a simple one. Morgana has surprisingly become a top tier jungler this patch, but it's been a bit excessive, so next patch her W's bonus damage to monsters is being reduced from 200% to 185%. Diana is in a similar situation, with her armor per level going down from 3.6 to 3.1, base HP regen down from 7.5 to 6.5, and bonus attack speed on passive down from 20 to 40% to 15 to 40%. The buffs turned her into a top tier jungler as well, and nerfs next patch should help keep her in check. Gragas is also getting nerfs next patch, as his E's damage is going down from 80 to 240 to the new 80 to 220. This is just another straightforward nerf that hits Gragas' scaling. I still obviously think he'll be a useful pick, but he's kind of hard to pilot, so if you've always wanted to learn Gragas but still can't figure him out, go check out our website and talk with one of our coaches. They'll walk you through all the steps you need to learn this fun champ. Now moving on to buffs, the first one we want to talk about is for Kindred. Their Q cooldown is being reduced from 9 to 8 seconds, and the damage up from 60 to 140 to the new 60 to 160. While the damage boost is nice, what feels more impactful is the reduced cooldown, because that means more mobility. Whenever Kindred isn't using W or is out of range, the dash cooldown can feel a bit too long at times. Reducing the cooldown should decrease his Kindred's reliance on W. Once more, we've got a Trundle buff as well. His E slow is going up from 20 to 60% to 32 to 60%, and this is typically the ability maxed last, so increasing that level 1 slow is already a pretty big change. Trundle should have slightly more impactful ganks than before, and the increased slows should help him run away or hunt down enemies trying to make a quick escape. Kane's red form is up for above next patch as well, with Rust's Q damage now dealing 65% of total AD instead of the original 55%. The bonus AD ratio remains unchanged, but this is still a nice buff that increases his damage output by a lot. Given the ability's short cooldown, we should see his win rate increase a bit next patch. And that'll wrap up the jungle, so let's hop into the mid lane next. Vladimir absolutely terrorized the Rift and became super OP this patch, and we cannot have that. He's set to receive a nerf that meets somewhere in the middle of where he was previously and where he is now. The Q cooldown is being changed from 9 to 4 seconds to 9 to 4.6 seconds. Oddly specific, but anyway, his Q's cooldown is still shorter than what it used to be when maxed, but a bit longer than where it is now. While this change might seem insignificant, reducing the rank 5 cooldown from 5 to 4 seconds increased his win rate by nearly 3%, so we should see a small dip in his win rate next patch because he's obviously going to be a bit weaker. And now we have Heimerdinger also receiving a nerf. Oh, a fun fact, his players in the top lane and mid lane are nearly identical. Anyways, W's damage is being reduced from 50 to 170 to 50 to 150. As a result, the max damage is also going down from 90 to 306 to 90 to 270. This means that Heimerdinger's poke will be much less meaningful in lane. Especially after level 9, his damage output overall will just be going down noticeably. Speaking about poke champs though, Xerath is getting buffed. All these assassins in the mid lane make it pretty tough for a guy like him to survive and play out the game. So to help out, his Q's damage is going up from 80 to 240 plus 75% AP to 70 to 230 plus 90% AP. His W's damage is also going up from 60 to 180 plus 60% AP to 60 to 200 plus 65% AP. These are huge buffs, and if you manage to survive to the mid game of Xerath, you will be rewarded starting next patch. His AP ratios have gone up quite a bit, with 90% on his Q being a massive change that I definitely want to avoid next time I see a fed Xerath. So mid lane covered, let's talk about bot laners next. First up, Jinx is up for a nerf next patch. Not surprising as she is a top tier pick, but what is surprising is it's actually more of a bug fix than a nerf. Her rocket's crit damage is going down from 200% to 175% when splashing onto targets. That would explain a lot, and even though this is a bug fix, she's clearly gonna miss out on some of that damage. And next up we have a nice buff for an underplayed bot laner, Kog'Maw. His Q's resistance shred is going up from 20 to 28% to 25 to 33%. Also, his E's mana cost is going down from 80 to 120 to 60 to 100. Although small, he's only seen buffs this season with a bug fix earlier on as well as increased damage to his W several patches ago. So slowly, he's becoming a stronger and more meaningful pick. Keep an eye on him because when we see Riot do these slow buffs over time, oftentimes champions can get way better than we expect them to way faster. And that's it for the bot lane, so now we'll wrap it up with supports. Taric is first on the list and his Q is receiving a pretty big buff. The mana cost is going down from 70 to 110 to 70 to 90. If you think this buff is small, definitely give Taric a run in a normal game. You get to spam that Q button during fights because the cooldown gets reduced heavily by your passive. And it's used so often that it's really easy to lose track of your mana bar and run out, especially when taking objectives. So reducing the cost by 20 is huge, and if you build an item like Frozen Heart for example, you probably will never need to think about mana management later in the game. And the final change we have is a buff for Lulu. Her W cooldown is being reduced from 16 to 12 to 15 to 11, and the attack speed bonus increased from 20 to 35 to 25 to 35%. The attack speed buff is negligible, but the reduced cooldown is very nice. Build some ability haste items, and you can expect Lulu to provide a little more utility starting next patch. And those were all the upcoming changes for patch 11.9. Let us know your favorite changes in the comments below, and also if you enjoyed the video, then a like and a sub to the channel really helps us out. That's all that we have for today, so as always, best of luck on the Rift everybody, stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time.